1, 2, 3. Action.
That scared me.
Hi, I'm Shona. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hello, I'm Shona.
I'm Jose.
I'm Anna.
And today we are going to be looking and analysing the second adaptation from the original novel, The Stepford Wives. It was remodelled in 2003 and this is the version that we are going to be studying today. So it was directed by a man named Frank Oz, who also directed the puppeteer show Sesame Street. He was actually also the original Jedi Master in the episode movie series Star Wars.
He was Yoda.
Yoda! He was Yoda! Yoda. So the follow through of the story is basically the protagonist, Joanne Eberhardt, a talented TV producer who has actually arrived in this new suburb with her husband and 2 kids after being fired, having a mental breakdown, and they've decided to reallocate for basically a fresh start and to really work back on their marriage. So once in the town of Stepford, there becomes an increasingly disturbing resemblance of zombie-like submissive wives within Stepford. And basically the whole plot is about Joanne actually unravelling and revealing the life of these once highly successful women who are now modified to fit their husband's idea of perfection. So they're dumbed down yet perfect to a T physically, and they portray a lot of beauty. However, Joanne is convinced that the conspiracy and convinced of this conspiracy, and she eventually breaks the system along with her husband. Especially after 2 of her friends have actually been modified by their husbands within the plot. So ultimately, Joanne and her husband take this down and allow the women to return to who they were before they were modified, you know, giving them purpose back again, allowing them to go back to the jobs that they had, the personalities that they brought to the table. So within this film, there's so many gender role factors that we'll unpack and highlight, and basically talking about society's idea of the typical submissive and docile wife who can conform to any stereotype, old-fashioned, subservient role in relation to her husband.
Yeah, in an effort to look at the movie, we looked at the questions of aesthetics, morality, and truth. With aesthetics, we were looking at to what extent does Stepford Wives actually offer constructive experiences of pleasure, beauty, and transcendence. And if you've ever seen the movie, you can pretty quickly realize that it doesn't have a lot of good values in this form. It's very unrealistic in a world that's been tucked away in Connecticut within a very real world, and they're just trying to change everyone. It's very insincere.
Yeah, within the frame of aesthetics as well. Through the beginning of the movie until the end, we can see a transition that the producers, the director, the entire plot is trying to achieve. Basically, the main character, it's shown to always wear black from the moment that they show us of her being portrayed until the moment that they decide to fix their marriage, because they were struggling to have their marriage together. They go to a town called Stepford, and from that town, the perspective change, the colors change, and the scenes change. Now everything's colorful. Now everything looks to be happy. Everything looks to be in control. Everything looks that there's no complaint. There's no argument with each other. And one more important fact through the aesthetic is there's no kids. Doesn't look to be a scene of family, but only husband and wife trying to be happy. But we have this couple, the negative couple in there trying to work their marriage through in this type of perspective.
Yeah, because from the very beginning of the movie, you have Joanna, who is portrayed as very successful, but she's dressed in all black. She wears black and gray. She has a very short, masculine, slicked back haircut. And as soon as she drives into Stepford, you immediately see the contrast of Joanna in black and the Stepford wives that are perfect hair, perfect makeup, dressed in floral and pastel colors. And you automatically see that Joanna is the one that doesn't fit in. Even in the movie, after a couple of days of being there, you see Joanna and her husband having a bit of an argument, and he's like, our marriage is falling apart. And she agrees to try to help it, but he goes, you have to stop wearing black. And she's like, black? Why? But that's all I've ever worn. And he says, you heard me. Only high-powered, neurotic, castrating Manhattan career. Beep. Yeah, wear black. Is that what you want to be? And Joanna answers and says, only ever since I was a little girl. And it just shows the purity of what her motives were. Like, she didn't intend to end up where they've ended up with their marriage falling apart. She just wanted to be what her image of successful was. And the movie just shows that as such a negative thing.
Yeah. Even like within the film, I feel like the director portrays that very well, in the sense of when she's working in New York and she's wearing like a black blazer and very formal clothing, she seems very harsh and almost distant from a lot of people. Yet when they go into Stepford and you see the women in pink dresses that are very form-fitting and flattering, and it gives this illusion of perfection, it kind of begs the question. It makes you think, like, is it wrong for Joanne to be in that position in the first place? Like, should women only be looking this idea of perfection? So the director really makes you think, even just looking at colour contrast and styles and clothing within the film.
Jumping now from these aesthetics, we see that it leads us to think what is the moral perspective, what's the moral aspect of this, bringing us to this very question, what can we tell about morality within the movie? And basically, from the beginning, as we mentioned, they're trying to save a marriage. They're trying to save themselves as couple, trying to look for a way out. In this way out, they're introduced to this town where, again, everything seems to be good, but within each other, they weren't agreed to that. The woman was always disagreeing to see that, and questioning herself, questioning the husband as well, saying why does it everything looks perfect? Why does it everyone looks to be smiling?
Yeah.
Why are they not fighting? Why are they not complaining? Why are they not going at each other with disagreements? That's not how humans are. That's not how we are intended to be. She used mentions of that because there's not the intentionality of what she thinks that a couple, a marriage should be within family. As well as I wanted to mention a phrase where basically we as human men and women, we are equal to be humankind, but we are different to have roles. We're different to have activities. We're different to think. So we don't collide with each other, but somehow we are what we are, and we accept the fact of that. But the movie is showing another type of morality where in order to be moral, in order to be good, you need to be perfect. You need to be the way your husband wants to be and the way you should be to your husband, but not rather a back and forward relationship with each other.
Yeah, and it's true. Like as he was saying, there was a woman named Susan Gollenberg, and she basically states that gender roles focus on the attitudes and behaviours considered appropriate for the male and female within a particular culture. And you can see this within Stepford. So within that culture, women are perceived to be, in a perfect sense, to be quiet and unseen, but do everything within the rule books. However, on the other side, it gave you the perspective of when she was in New York about being high esteemed and working in a high powerful job. Is that wrong? And it shows you that as she enters into this new society and this new culture, gender roles have been formed by the people that are there and what they think they should be like. So the men at the country club have all their wives the exact same, perfect, pristine, and that's because of the culture that they're now a part of. And it's very evident throughout the film just how influenced Joanne's husband is by the people that he's surrounded with.
Yeah, there's a scene about halfway through the movie where Joanna has finally accepted that she needs to work on her marriage, and she's decided to fit in with the Stepford wives and wear pink. And so she starts baking, like any submissive wife does. She starts baking, and she's made like 1 billion cupcakes for her daughter's school. And her friend Bobby, who hasn't been turned into the robot Stepford wife yet, walks in with her husband, and her husband goes, "Oh, cupcakes, why don't you bake cupcakes?"
Yeah.
And Bobby replies to her husband and says, "Well, why don't you?" And he goes, "Because I have a penis." And like, as funny as that may sound, it's pointing to a very obvious distinction between gender roles in the movie, that women belong in the kitchen, women should be baking and cleaning the house and taking care of the children, while the men go off during the day and they hang out at their club and smoke cigars and all of that. Like, it's the very clear distinction between men and women.
Yeah.
And it's an aspect of truth as well, leading up to the final point, to the final question, what is truth within the movie. and we like to think of within each other that what we're looking is for that truth where we it's not found in the movie, where we don't see a husband trying to come back to his wife, but what we see instead is the husband trying to be with the friends, trying to do the activities he wants, trying to have the wife doing the laundry, the wife doing the cooking. Meanwhile, he does his thing. He talks about business. He talks about whatever they talk within men, instead of being with his family, with his wife, to be in harmony, in company with each other.
Yeah, it even shows that once the men have perfected their wives, they treat them less like wives and more like someone that they've hired to come be with them. They've lost the intimacy in that relationship. They snap their fingers for them to go get them a drink, or they put a credit card in their mouth and use them as an ATM, when it just shows that the perfection doesn't achieve the real happiness. But the sad part is that Joanna's husband had good motives in the beginning of the movie, and he brought his family here trying to save them. He wanted to fix their marriage, and he wanted to help his wife and their kids, and he thought that would be a better life for them, but he just did it the wrong way.
Yeah, and I think this movie has a really good concluding point where it shows a really extreme choice that one person has taken within a relationship to actually change someone else for their level of expectation as to what they want their partner to be. And we were just talking about the idea of, like, even within the 21st century, about how men and women's roles have really changed throughout the years, but it's not always wrong. Like, some people have actually chosen for the man to go out and work and the woman to stay at home, and that's not wrong, yet it's perceived to still be bad because it's, women need freedom and that's not her choice. But many couples have chosen to still do that. Many couples have chosen to work full-time, or the man stays at home and looks after the kids and she goes out working, or they're both stay-at-home parents. Like, a lot of people have chosen different gender roles in different aspects within a relationship, and I think something that this film does really well is actually portraying the idea that you can't actually change someone within the relationship. You can't ask someone to be the way that you want them to be. So yeah, I think that's what it does really well.
Yeah, it just kind of shows that in society, like, we can't put someone down for living a lifestyle that's different than ours. Just because someone else has chosen to live that stay-at-home mom life doesn't make her love her kids any more or less than someone that is the CEO of a company and works long hours and has a nanny. Like, it doesn't change. They're both doing what they think is the best thing for their families, and we have to respect that. Otherwise, we're holding women, like, us as women are holding other women to different standards.
Without even going a bit further to the actual movie as well, within itself we can see that the audience can also expect that, again, the humans are trying to make everything perfect, to make everything good for what they think is good, for what they think it might work, but somehow they have left aside the originality of how we were intended to be as humankind, the realness of how we are intended to be, how we are meant to behave. Because one can take one position, and it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. It matters about coordination. It matters about being in agreement with each other, where one might be doing more than each other, but is in agreement. So we can see throughout, and the audience can see, in even explaining that once again, humans try to create something better, but we cannot make better what it has already been intended to be.
So that's our presentation, and we hope you learned something from us.
See ya.
Bye.
That's done. We're not doing it again. That is it.